Welcome to another episode of the Bonsai Stuff podcast. I'm Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu, but you already knew that. If it's your first time, welcome on board. If you're coming back, then here's a warm embrace from me to you. Thank you for coming back. And have I got a treat for you in this podcast? This podcast, I've done an interview with the South Australian Bonsai Society president. And if you are around the Adelaide region or you can get to Adelaide in the early parts of August 2024, then there's a treat coming up for you that you may be very interested in hearing about. So stick around for that interview. I'm also going to start talking about a few things. I've travelled around a little bit lately, seen some more people, met new people, which I love doing. Really love seeing how friendly the bonsai world is around the country. Really nice. Bumped into people, and as I come across and have conversations with people about different things, I think, that'd be really interesting to talk about on the podcast. And one of them was talking about, I'm too old to start a new bonsai, or I'm too old to do that, or I'm whatever. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And as we head towards the very latter parts of autumn, I look around, see beautiful leaves, beautiful colouring. Had a very fortunate trip recently up to regional Victoria to a place called Bright. And if you don't know where Bright is, get on to interwebs and search for Bright Victoria and look at the autumn colour of the trees up there. Oh my God, it's amazing. And a bit of a shout out to whoever was involved in planting trees so long ago in that region for the purpose of people like me to go there and you to go there and witness them at this very, very special time of autumn. It's just amazing. Seriously, it just took my breath away. Everywhere I turned, I would see these amazing trees, and there'd be the planting along the roads where people drive and they take it in, like cars pull over and take photos left, right and centre in front of you. But you've got interlaced between a magnificent deciduous variety of tree, then the next tree is a beautiful cedar, and then you've got another deciduous, and you've got another cedar, and you've got these green and reds and green and yellows right the way along. And then interlaced at the back of that, you've got these beautiful Australian native gums and all different varieties. And it's just, seriously, if you're a tree lover, it's a pilgrimage that you need to make to get up to this place during the autumn period and have a look, because it is just absolutely spectacular. All right, another section of the podcast that I'm going to talk about too is things to watch out. I've made a short list of things that I look for at this particular time of year as we head towards the very last part of the autumn period and we head into the winter dormancy, where I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. Then there's things that we need to be ready for. So strap yourselves in. If you're driving the car, eyes on the road. If you're settled at home, put your feet up and get a nice warm cuppa and strap yourself in, because this should be really interesting. I personally love the interview. I love what this interview talks about and where it's going and what it's about for us as bonsai lovers inside Australia. So have a listen. Let me know what you think. All right, I've got this interview coming up with Matthew Sharp. Matt is his name, president of the South Australian Bonsai Society. You hear all that in a few seconds in the podcast. And we're going to be talking primarily about collecting wild olives. Now, olive make fantastic bonsai. If you haven't got one, you should get one. There's certain varieties that are better than others, small leaf, larger leaf, all that sort of stuff. Some get bark, some stay smooth, some get bark as they get older, some are corkier than others, all different varieties. That's all cool, but we're talking about the variety of olive that grow quite wild and a bit of a pest around the South Australian region. That climate, they tend to thrive and do very, very well, and as a result, they're a spreading weed, so they need to be eradicated. So this conversation with Matt is on the basis of the club over there in South Australia. They organise an annual dig, and part of that annual dig is that their members can go and collect these trees. And it's all, as you'll hear, it's all above board, it's all with permissions, and it's really important to quantify that up front, that it is these are all legally and ethically collected. I love the fact that it is a weed. It's not a native, and that it's all with approval and permissions and insurances and everything that needs to be done to make this completely above board. There's no nighttime digs with this. It's all above board. So it's something that I think is an awesome opportunity. So you'll hear the ins and outs of it and the further details. So listen in. Let's get into this interview. Right, so now we've got a special guest on for the podcast, and we're going to talk about something which is near and dear to my heart, which is collecting trees from the wild legally and ethically, and it's about olives. And I've got Matthew Sharp, or Matt, who's the president of the South Australian Bonsai Society, on the line, who's going to have a chat with us about this collecting process. So welcome, Matt, to the Bonsai Stuff podcast.
Thank you very much, Scott. Great to be here. Big fan of your podcast too.
Ah, fantastic, mate. That's very nice to hear. I love it. So we're talking about collecting olives from the wild, and you guys in South Australia seem to have these things in abundance, which is very good for you guys. I know they're a bit of a pest, and that people want to get rid of them. What's the process that you go through to collect the trees? What would someone do typically when they come out on a dig?
Okay, so at the South Australian Bonsai Society, we hold an annual dig. And what we do is we've got permission to go out to certain areas. And as you said, they are feral. They are everywhere. We have literally tens of thousands of trees everywhere. And so we head out with our picks and our shovels and our wheelbarrows. We go to places where we have permission to dig them up. And we collect them and bring them home, put them into pots and turn them into nice bonsai. It's a great event. It's one of the highlights of the year for me.
Fantastic. So you talked about club having permission. How did the club get permission to dig the olives up?
Okay, so what we did is there's quite a number of parks and national parks around the place where the olives grow completely feral. So what we did is we approached the council and we talked to the rangers in charge of that area. And after a bit of toing and throwing, we got permission to go and dig them up. So we have to give them plenty of warning and tell them exactly when we're going and where we're going. And they have some rules that we need to follow. So that's paramount as well. So that's how we approach it as a club. And so every year we just check with them again. Is it okay if we go this year? They say fine, and we get the date that we go out and we organise it each year.
I think that's a really important part, is getting that permission to collect anything from the wild, even if it is, I just say, a feral pest, which they are, which we all have in our local areas, no matter where you are around the world listening to this. I'm sure you're going to have species which are deemed noxious weeds, but you need to, well, in my opinion, you need to make sure you've got permission for a number of reasons. But there's nothing worse than collecting something illegally and then having that guilt on your shoulders. So if the club organises that permission for all the club members that come along for the dig, I reckon that's a really good thing.
Exactly right. And as you said, just because it's feral doesn't mean you can all go charging off and dig at will. There are some rules around the place, like we have to sterilise our equipment before we go in, and we have to obviously only target the olive trees, and we have to look after the area that we're tromping around, and we have to fill in the holes so that erosion isn't a problem. And also they like us to be a bit discreet about it, because some of the areas that we go are, they're open to the public, and so we tend to go into areas which you can't see from the main road, just because from their point of view, it's not a good look with people walking into parks with shovels over their shoulders and wheelbarrows and wheeling things out again. So there's the optics as well that we need to be careful of.
Yeah, it's nice that you get it checked every year as well. I think that's really important. It's not just a carte blanche. Yeah, go and do it, because I assume that if it's done the wrong way or there's some cowboys out there, then it ruins it for the majority. And from my time over in Adelaide with you guys and doing workshops with your members, there's a lot of beautiful olive trees floating around that have been collected over the years. So this is something which, not only for the current members of the South Australian Bonsai Society, it's also for future members that you need to protect the integrity of this through doing it through the right.
Absolutely. We have a really good relationship, and we need to keep that for future digs, because they could turn around very quickly and say, no, we're not going to let you do this anymore because somebody didn't do the right thing. So, yeah, you did right. Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So now I'm just interested. I want to dig down a little bit further. pardon the pun, but dig down on the tools and what people take. What do they need? What utensils do they need to get these things out of the ground? Because some of them I've seen are actually quite large and heavy.
Yes. Yes, we've got people in the club who go for the really, really big stuff, and we've got the people who just go for the tiny little ones and everything in between. First thing you need is a good shovel. We go digging. We usually wait until after the rains, so the ground isn't too hard. You need a shovel or a pick. I find a pickaxe is actually better than a shovel. And then we need saws, and secateurs to take off, because we take off most of the foliage of what we dig up, and lots of other specialist equipment that some people bring. Just trying to think.
Are you allowed to take chainsaws into the national park? Or is it hand saws that you guys tend to use?
Yeah, look, we take hand saws. Some people have reticulating saws.
Yep, okay. So look, battery powered would be okay.
I've seen some people go in with chainsaws. I've seen people on YouTube dig up olive trees by just getting the chainsaw out and cutting it off at ground level.
Yep.
We don't do that. The problem with that is that you're leaving the roots behind, and the tree will keep growing. And
right.
part of the reason that we're going out and that the park ranger is happy for us to do it is that we're actually digging it up.
Yep.
And so the tree doesn't come back.
Mm.
So we dig it up. We dig up by the roots, take out the stump, and then once we get the stump out, we then chop most of the roots off. We saw it off at the widest point, because we're a bit spoilt with the olives. You don't need to collect a root ball. They've got a great big lignature on them, and they will survive anything. So we cut them off. We cut all the roots off. We take them home. We put them in a pot, and away they go.
That's why I love it. I reckon this olive dig, I'm really, really excited about it, because I think that they are a perfect species for the novice collector to get out there and correctly take them out of the ground with some guidance, and then get them home and have them survive, as opposed to maybe something which is a bit more delicate or a bit more fragile. The olives seem to be, when they come out of the ground, quite robust. And as you say, cutting off that base and getting that nice squared off bottom to fit into a bonsai pot for the future, makes them absolutely perfect.
Well, in the decades that I've been digging up olives, I've got to say, fingers crossed, I've never lost one. That's
a good strike rate.
Yeah, that's extremely good. In fact, a lot of the time when we get novices coming to our digs, never been before, and often the main thing that we're telling them is to be fussy about the tree that you're going to pick.
Yep.
Don't just go charging off and just grabbing the first you see, because if the tree's a bit mediocre, you walk a metre and there's another one, and you keep trying again, and you actually spend an hour looking for a good tree.
That's a really good way to do it, actually, because otherwise you'd dig up a lot of rubbish. You'd get it home and be disappointed with it, because the effort to get a good tree out of the ground, potentially good tree out of the ground, is going to be exactly the same as the effort to get an average tree out of the ground. So taking your time to get it right at that first point, and having, I suppose, someone around you, some sort of guidance of people who've dug these things, would make it a real benefit. I think the experience from past digs would come forward to those that are new to doing the dig, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I these days, I don't dig up as many trees because I have plenty. I spend a lot of time helping other people identify what's a good tree, what's a good candidate, and so every year we get some fabulous trees coming out of it.
Good stuff. All right, so now this is I don't want you to disclose the site where it is. I think it's really important to keep this under wraps. But you're based in South Australia, in the city of Adelaide.
That's right.
And is it far? Do you have to travel very far from the city of Adelaide to get to where you're taking these olives?
Not at all. It's less than a half-hour drive to where we go.
Okay, so it's really close to the metropolitan area. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that makes it dead convenient for anyone that comes along. Now, that leads me nicely into this next section I want to talk about. It's this special idea that was put together, and I was there when this sort of came and got formulated, but I'll get you to explain what this special idea is about this olive dig to the listeners of the podcast.
Well, what happened was, Scott, you came over last year to do some workshops for us, and while we're having dinner, we showed you a picture of where we go and dig up the olives, and your eyes went very wide and your jaw dropped at the sheer number, and you said you should be inviting other people to this. And so we went away and we thought about this. So what we're doing is we're going to invite a small number of other people from interstate to come and join us. if you want. So the idea is initially we approached the Bonsai Society of Victoria, and they have put it to their members. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw it open further again. So if people are interested, basically what you need to do is pay a $40 membership and actually join the South Australian Bonsai Society. We do that for insurance purposes. And then what you can do is once you've paid that money, you can give you the dates, and you can come on over and make your own way over, and we'll organise a place to meet. We'll take you up into the hills. We'll have a fabulous day of digging up magnificent trees, and we'll do it the Saturday and the Sunday, and we'll even throw in a barbecue for you.
Saturday, Sunday, and a barbecue. Now, this isn't open-ended, so 1,000 people can't rock up to this on the weekend.
Exactly right.
There's a limit on the number of people, isn't it, that can come across?
It is actually quite a small number. We're going to limit to 20 people.
Yep.
Mainly because we can't have, for instance, 100 people rocking up and all charging off from this one spot. It's not going to work. So it's just a small number of people. And
so those people then should purchase the South Australian Bonsai Society membership, and then contact you via the email, which will be in the notes for this podcast. There'll be an email address that you can access from it. We're not going to put it onto the podcast, but you have to pre-register your intent to come across for the dig, and when it gets to 20 people, that is it. So what's the date of the dig?
Okay, so it's the first weekend of August, so the 3rd and the 4th of August. So we'll head out Saturday morning and the Sunday morning.
Perfect.
So if you send an email first, just register your interest. That's all you have to do initially.
Yep.
And then we'll take it from there. We'll cap the numbers, and then we'll contact those people, and we'll contact everybody and let them know if they're able to make it or not.
So let me just my eyes are popping out of my head again with this, because so you've got, and I'll just break this down for everyone listening to this podcast. You pay $40. That's it. You go away to Adelaide, one of the most beautiful parts of Australia, for the weekend, and you get to dig as many olives as you can possibly fit into your car over a 2-day period. Now, I would suggest it's probably going to be 1, 2, or 3. It's not going to be hundreds of these things, because that's not what the idea is. The idea is to take home some special, memorable trees and do it properly. That's the most important part. But for $40, you can become part of what we call the gather round of bonsai. Now, anyone that's outside of Australia, or even those inside of Australia that aren't just interested in AFL football, won't know what gather round is. But anyone that listens that is interested in AFL, what happens is all the teams get together for a gather round from around Australia. They come together to Adelaide and they play football there for one weekend of the year, all in one city. Now, that's what I reckon this bonsai olive dig that you've organised is starting to sound like. And I haven't told you this yet. I've been saving this to actually talk to you face to face or over this podcast. But I'm going to make the trip over for this first
Oh,
dig.
fantastic!
Yeah, so I'll be there. If you want to come along and register your interest via the email address that's going to be in the notes for the podcast, then I'll be there as well, because I have my eyes on one of these trees, and I kid you not, I can still vividly see the photo that was shown to me of these hills, these plains, as far as the eye can see, with millions of these olives, all of different sizes and states. One of those is definitely going to have my name on it, I can guarantee you. So I'll be there with my shovel ready to go, mate.
Fantastic. That's brilliant.
So the people join up for the membership. Now, of the measly $40 that they paid, they also get to join the South Australian Bonsai Society. Now, having worked with you guys and done demo there and stuff, it's a great club. What are they going to get out of that for their membership as well?
Oh, look, it is a great club. We meet twice a month. So if you're a member, you have access to our, obviously you would have to be in Adelaide. We have a library, we have resources, we do beginners lessons, we do all sorts. We have visiting tutors. We have a couple of those a year, and you also have access to our annual show in October every year. You can come along to that as well. You get first crack at some of the trees that are for sale. We call ourselves Australia's oldest bonsai club. We're actually celebrating our 60th year this year.
Wow, 60.
Yep, so we're going to have a cake and everything.
Congratulations,
So,
mate. That's great.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I think there is a bit of conjecture. I think some other clubs may be making claim to being older, but that's what we say. That's what we say anyway. But we're a great club. We're a friendly club.
You are a friendly club, and I'll pat you on the back for that, because having been there and travelled over and met a lot of these people for the first time myself, it's a lovely club. It's very nice. The meetings are great. You can also travel through if you're a member. One, it supports the club, keeps it afloat. But if you're ever travelling through that area, you can always stop in for a meeting or a workshop or something like that, or come over like Matt's saying about for a special international guest or an Australian-wide guest that may pop in there to do some work.
Absolutely.
And it's a value to everyone. So, if the intent with this annual Olive Bonsai Dig is to make it an annual event, which I think people can look forward to. Is that the idea? So people can plan for, if they can't get into the limited number that are available for this year, is it something that they could plan for the following year?
Yes, we're looking to make it annual or biannual. I think annual at this stage. That's what we're aiming for. We'll just see how this goes. If the numbers got a bit crazy, we would have to maybe think of some other weekends as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll just see how we go. Yeah.
As long as it's done the right way, everyone follows the rules, everyone does the right thing. Yeah. Everyone's kind of considerate, which bonsai people are. We're the best people in the world,
right,
I'll tell you. So it'll go smashingly. I'm rapt that I was sort of there when we took the lid off a couple of beers and we nutted out this idea. It's great. I feel like a proud uncle at the moment, sitting back seeing this thing take wings. I think it's awesome that we can get access to some amazing, incredible, true Yamadori stock. You can collect it yourself. You can make your own path, your own story with a piece of material that's readily available. That does a favour to the national parks in South Australia, as well as as well as helping the club out, get some new members, and you get a tree that's got a story that weekend you went over and dug it yourself and pulled it out of the ground, and now look at it somewhere down the track. It's an amazing tree. So it's one of those win-win-win situations for everybody, and I'd strongly encourage everybody to get involved. And like I said, the details for it will be in the notes for the podcast. Matt, it's great catching up with you again, mate. Thank you for your time, and let's maybe do a follow-up on this once we've had the dig and see how it goes, and we'll do a follow-up podcast for it as well.
Great idea. Thanks very much, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right. Cheers, mate. I really hope you enjoyed that. That was a great interview. Like I said, I'm so excited because I could be there at the foundation of this idea, and like planting a seed. Hopefully it's something that grows and grows and grows, and something that a lot of people can take advantage of. One thing that does need to be clarified, though, is this isn't for commercial operators for resale of the collected material. This is for individuals to go there and access something that they normally can't get in their own backyard. And even if you can get in your own backyard, all the hard work's been done for you by the club, making sure that this is above boards and all legal and it's all organised, and there's a barbecue afterwards where everyone can get together and share bonsai stories and grow the bonsai love around Australia. So it's, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really excited about it. I love it. So if you've got the opportunity, there is a very limited number that of people that can get into this thing. So in the podcast notes, there's an email address. I would register your interest first before going and getting too excited and organising accommodation and planning this trip, just to make sure that you are one of that selected few that can get across there. And I'll be there. I'm going to come across for the first one. So if you want to catch up and have a sausage and maybe a beer or two, I'll be there. So anyway, see how you go. Now, I was fortunate enough recently to have been invited to do a presentation at the Ballarat Bonsai Society, and I love it. I love getting into the regional spaces. I love getting outside of what is around me in close distance, and travelling to see people and getting to slightly different climates and different experiences and different collections and that sort of thing. And I loved it. Really, really nice. It was on Pines, the talk, and the conversation was thick and fast. And one of the things that I suppose that sparked my interest from one of my conversations was talking with someone about saying that they're too old to do something. Oh no, I don't have enough years left. And I'd ask a question like, how long will it take for that to develop? And I don't know, 5, 10 years, something like that. Oh, I don't have that many years left in me. They do, of course they do. But the thing I suppose that I wanted to talk about in the podcast is a change of perspective you've got for how long things take. I've talked about it before that I believe the best part of bonsai that we can all get the most out of is to enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, enjoy what's happening here right now in front of us, and embrace every single step along the way, because I don't believe that your bonsai will ever be 100%. They'll get to 99, maybe 99.9%, but there's always something that's going to change on those trees, and that's the way they're designed, and that's why we love them. And I've talked about it till I'm blue in the face, but I think that by doing something now or starting something now doesn't mean that, and I'm not trying to be morbid with this, but doesn't mean that you necessarily have to finish it. That's not what I believe your target should be with bonsai. Your target should be to do the best you can at that very point in time that you have that tree in front of you. So, planting a seed now, taking a cutting, wiring a whip, potting something up into grow beds, collecting an olive from the wild, whatever it is, doesn't mean that you need to have that thing fully finished. It's not like a checklist to say, all right, when I've done all this stuff, I can then go and pass on to greener pastures. It's you just keep enjoying it as you go along and enjoy the process that's happening with it. So I don't want that term to resonate any further with anybody that they think that they're too old to do bonsai. You might be too old to have a tree that's 2 meters tall because you can't lift it. That's the same for all of us. But I think that not doing something or not getting involved with bonsai, or not cutting something off, or growing something from a bud, or planting a seed because you enjoy planting seeds because you're never going to be there to see the thing grow. That's almost, you've missed the point of what bonsai is about. Bonsai is about the enjoyment side of it, and as long as you enjoy every part of it, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. It doesn't matter where you get to. It's like, I've told you before that my aim with my bonsai is to make the best bonsai in the world, the absolute best. I don't think I'll ever do it, but that's my aim, and it's my driver. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to make the best bonsai ever in the world. And I said, hand on heart, I honestly know that is something that is unattainable, because there's brilliant bonsai around the world, and there's brilliant people involved in bonsai, and there's beautiful species around the world. And, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and what I think's the best may not be what you think is the best. And that's why so many people do bonsai, because it's so subjective. But it's my driver for me to get out of bed. So if your driver is to get up and have trees that you can prune and plant things and watch seed come out of the soil, fantastic. Go ahead and do it, and make sure that you enjoy it with all of your heart and everything that's inside you. But don't hold back. Starting something now is far better than never starting at all. Autumn is getting very close to wrapping up. Very, very close. To the point that the ground is covered in leaves, perpetually covered in leaves. You clean them up, they fall down. You clean them up, they fall down. But that's part of the process. The trees start heading towards dormancy, and there's some things that I look out for, particularly at this time of the year when I'm working, and I just wanted to make them really short and sharp and snappy. So when you're working on your trees, or when you're with your trees, it's just like a couple of things that you can just keep an eye on and just say, hey, yep, no worries, okay. And I promise I'm not going to use the F word. I'm not going to talk about fertilising, because I've talked about that so many times. But make sure you're fertilised, okay? You've only got a month left. Anyway, so moving on. What you've got to be careful of when you're working around your yard at the moment is, and on my trees, one thing I'm always mindful of is the unders. Anything that's growing underneath the branch, whether it's needles on a cedar, whether it's growth on a juniper branch, whether it's needles coming from underneath a pine, or it's a bud that's growing down, whatever it is, just be really mindful that your pads look really, really nice when they're nice and sharp underneath and there's nothing growing down or there's nothing hanging down. If you want an example, have a look at one of the videos I did recently on the cedars on my YouTube channel where I show the plucking of the needles and the needles that I target and how getting rid of the ones that roll over and round off the edge of the pads and make those needles stand up a little bit more vertical or a little bit more up than down makes such a big difference, such a massive difference. So that's one thing that I really focus on now. I do it all the time, but at this time of the year when I expect my pines, my conifers to look magnificent, this is the go time for pines, then focus on the unders. Make sure that part is really clean. Don't have it fluffy, don't have needles hanging down, don't have growth hanging down. Really get in there and focus on making that part really nice, and you'll be amazed that just by doing that, how clean things suddenly get for you. The second is a bit of a housekeeping one, debris removal. These leaves fall. They're everywhere. Even if you don't have deciduous trees in your yard like I do that are growing in the garden, you'll have neighbours' rubbish blowing across your fence. You'll have stuff blowing across the ground. No matter where it is, try and do the very best to get rid of as much of it as you possibly can because it is a haven for bugs. It becomes the area that seems to fester for me and cause so many problems as we get through towards the latter part of winter and into early spring as trees start to wake up. That just cleaning it up now as you go makes such a big difference. And I know for me, like as I mentioned in previous podcast, my big pin oak that's in the backyard, the last leaf comes off that bloody tree on the very last minute of autumn. But I try and make it that I've got them all clean. So as soon as winter gets here, debris removal isn't an issue for me because it's already gone. You know, I've removed it off the deciduous trees. I don't have stuff falling on the ground anymore. So even though autumn is a blessing and a curse, I get the beautiful leaves, I get the beautiful colour, I get everything that goes with that amazing season. I also get the downside of all the crap falling off your trees and making a hell of a mess around the yard that needs to be cleaned up. But I try and push myself to say, okay, it's going to be over soon. You've only got 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks left of this, and then it'll be done, and you'll be in the winter period, the dormancy period. Repotting starts, but that's okay. You'll have nice clean benches because you're on top of this stuff now, and you've removed all these fallen leaves. So that's another thing that I'm focusing on. Another one that's on my list of things that I'm focusing on right now is broken needles. Now, broken needles, if you have pines of any kind, then this autumn-winter period is a really important time for you to be plucking needles, bud selecting, wiring, shaping, doing all the good stuff that makes them look the best they ever can, right? If you are working on those trees and you feel yourself getting pricked or spiked in the hands, then you're doing it wrong. Okay? If you feel that you're getting spiked, you're doing it wrong. It means that your hands are in there too close to those needles, and as they spike you, you're going to be finding that you're going to break some of those needles. Use tweezers to do the work where you feel yourself getting spiked. The second part is up and under. All right? So if you're going to work on a pine branch and you need to get into the inner part of it and you can't get there from a top-down approach with your hand, use your opposite hand, come underneath the branch, work your way up in the direction the needles are growing, then spread it apart, then come in with your tweezers in your working hand and start plucking those needles. It makes it so much easier to do that. So up and under, go with the flow of the needles. Don't fight the needles. If you fight those needles and you feel yourself getting pricked, you'll sit back after you've done the work on the tree, say, yep, no problems, looks great. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. 3 or 4 weeks' time, you're going to look across the tree and you'll see all these brown tips on your needles. It's not caused by a fungal issue. It's not caused by an insect. It's caused by rough handling when you're working the tree. So if you feel yourself getting spiked, then stop, reset, think about how you're doing it, see if there's another angle that you can go in on, and I'll almost guarantee it. For me, I start feeling that prickling, that spiking on the needles as I get more and more tired. The more tired I get, the more lazy I become, the more heavy-handed I become when I'm doing things. And when that starts happening, I start doing damage to those needles. So if you feel yourself getting prickled, stop, rework it, or just have a rest, come back another day when you're feeling a little bit better. The last thing that I had on my list for talking about in the podcast today is overwatering. It's a really hard time, autumn. Really, really hard. I find winter's really easy because you just don't water very much. You know they're dormant. it's really easy to see. A lot of the trees don't have leaves, so don't worry about them. Natives still take up water probably more aggressively than most over the winter period, so don't just cut off all watering completely. Your evergreens, things that or your anything evergreen, broadleaf evergreens, your conifers, whatever it is that holds their leaf or their needle, they take up less, but they still take it up. But your deciduous are, scaled right back. So your watering becomes so much easier. This part of autumn, as you're getting into that, you look around your yard and you'll say, oh, that tree's already lost its leaves. Oh, that one's still green. Oh, that one's a beautiful colour. They're all at different phases and different stages, so you can't water them all the same way. You need to really, really gauge it and say, okay, well, that one's still wet. That doesn't need it, and that's going dormant. This one over here, maybe another day before it gets watered. No, that one's dry. That's got to get watered today. So it's a bit all over the shop at the moment, but just be careful not to overwater your trees. You'll start getting some serious issues with leaf and rot if your root system starts to stay on the too wet side. So have a listen. There was an earlier podcast that talked about overwatering and underwatering. Might be one just to catch up on again, but that's something that I know for me as I walk around my yard, it's a very cautious thing with the watering wand at the moment, because I don't want to overdo it, but I don't want to underdo it. I'm sort of counting down the days till we get to winter when it becomes a little bit easier and a bit more lax, that I can go, whew. And when spring gets here, it's just, okay, they're all growing, so start watering. And then summer gets here and it's like they're hot water, flat out. But autumn's that difficult one where it's, are they growing? Are they dormant? Which stage are they up to? Do I need to water them? Do I need to not water them? What's the impact if I keep watering these things? Anyway, that's the list of things that I came up with very quickly for the things to watch out now when you're around your yard in this late part of autumn. Well, thank you for listening into the podcast. I do honestly, I know I say this every week, but I do honestly appreciate the patronage and that you take the time to listen to this. Time is your most valuable asset, and that you give it to me for once a week to listen to this podcast means more to me than it does to you. And I'm not sure that I can convey how much it means to me when I hear people talk to me and tell me that they are listeners to the podcast, because I think you could be doing absolutely anything else with your time, and that you give it to me. I take that as a great responsibility and a great privilege. So thank you very much for listening in. I do love it. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Matt as well about the Annual Olive Bonsai Dig. If you are interested, let me tell you, get in early, because this thing's going to fill up. You are not going to want to wait till next year, because who knows with these things where they end up. I would get in quick and get in early and start planning your trip with a few bonsai buddies and see what you can add to your collection for a measly amount of $40 and a nice road trip across to one of the greatest places in Australia, across to Adelaide. So thanks for listening. Hope you loved it. Make sure that you stay in touch. If you have any concerns, any questions, anything that I can help with bonsai related, please flick it through via the socials. Send me photos, send me a message, because I love it. I love helping you and I love getting back to you. If I haven't got back to you, I'm pretty sure that I'm up to date with everything. If I haven't got back to you, just give me a little bit of a nudge and I'll help you as much as I possibly can, wherever I possibly can. So thanks as always. Thanks to subscribers, and until next time, happy bonsai.